Well, folks, apologies for that little intro. That is clearly not the wrestling show. We are here on the afternoon rabble. My name's Bryan, the host, and I'm with Dan from the Wednesday week. Dan, how are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, good mate, good mate. So yeah, apologies for that little intro. That
That
wasn't
absolutely
my
threw me. I thought you
doing.
were going to ask me questions. I mean, my wrestling knowledge kind of topped out around Undertaker about 1991, 92. So anything after that is just it's just me making it up. I know The Rock was involved a few years later, but I've got no knowledge of it, I'm afraid.
Well, yes, obviously the admins did change things for me, so I am carrying the can for that, unfortunately. But here we are. So, how's things in Sheffield Wednesday world now? Since we
Uh,
last spoke, I spoke to Ash at the start of the season.
mhm. So we had obviously all the news came out around about March about the players and the non-playing staff not getting paid. That's happened now 5 times in the last 7 months. We've had a mass exodus of players over the summer, and then as the season started, there's this weird thing where the players aren't under any real scrutiny as it stands right now because of what they're playing through, and rightly so. Don't get me wrong; that's not me taking a dig at it. We've had some great performances from some of the younger players, players who wouldn't have really had a step into first team football had it not been for everything that's happening right now. So that's been a positive somewhat, and we've managed to unearth a couple of real gems in players like Ernie Weaver and George Brown, with the former having to go under the knife for surgery a couple of days ago on what would have been a tremendously, a big breakthrough season for him. So there is this. There's just this constant litany of things going wrong, and that's before the back of our stuff is even spoken about.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when I spoke to Ash, we had just signed. Is it Djidi Gassam?
Yeah,
And he was completely full of praise. He said, we got him for a snip, which
yeah,
when he first started, he scored, I believe, 3 times in Europe in the qualifiers. He hasn't scored in the league as of yet, but early signs were really positive. And then, like most things that have happened since then, we feel like Russell Martin has coached a lot of things out of the players,
yes.
and every player seems to have went backwards, and I'm afraid Mr. Bassam has fallen into that category. But with the incoming new manager Danny Rohl that you've obviously experienced, what did Danny Rohl do at Sheffield Wednesday that Russell Martin didn't do at Rangers?
Let me talk about Gassama first. Let me talk about Jetty first, because when he first came in, we had this player that had this unbelievable raw talent. Like, he could clearly play, clearly knew how to work a football, and what we had was this player that kept running into trouble. Kept. He was one of Danny's early signings. We got him from Paris Saint-Germain at 19 years old, and he kept running into trouble and then hitting the byline. And there was no end product whatsoever. And a lot of people talk about quality end product. He just didn't have one. He'd hit the deck, or he'd run into a big 6-foot centre back who just stop him in his tracks. And he didn't really know how to deal with that because he's not really played blood and guts thunder, even at the reserves at Paris Saint-Germain, right? So what Danny did, one of his big successes, specifically in that second season he had, where we finished mid-table, which was great for us, by the way, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a bit. What Danny did do was make a real player out of Gassama. There was this good 3 or 4 month period over Christmas. It started about this time last year, where he was absolutely outstanding, and we had a player that could play football. I feel like the issue is with Russell Martin, as the pressure built, players like Gassama are a luxury to a manager under fire, if that makes sense. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't really let somebody express himself. And that's what Danny did with Gassama. He let him go, do you know what, Jed? Crack on, son. We'll keep it tight at the back. You can do what you do. And some of the performances he put in were absolutely incredible. And the goals are what you'd call Iron Robin goals, if you're old enough to remember how every goal he scored. They were all the same, you know what I mean? The ones where he'd go marauding down the wing, cut inside and slap one in the far beans on toast. Absolutely brilliant. In terms of Russell Martin and Danny Rohl and the tactical changes, it's ironic that he's replacing Russell Martin It's ironic because that was the catalyst of the fallout of that was the start of Danny Rohl falling out of love with Sheffield Wednesday. Danny Rohl had previously worked at Southampton. Russell Martin got his marching orders down there, and then he wanted to go. And then the chairman had tied him up in a really tight contract, like one of those 90s mobile phone Vodafone contracts. And so what that did was sully that relationship as a result. And that's where it started to fall apart. So the irony of him now going to Rangers to be reunited with one of his greatest successes in terms of developing a player and finally replacing Russell Martin, the irony is not wasted on me. If you talk about the style of football, if you want to talk about how it plays out. Actually, Barry Bannon was on TalkSport this morning, and he said it really well. He said we've got two styles of play. We had two or three formations, two or three styles of play that we could draw on, and we were well coached for that. And Barry Bannon was really quite vocal about his time under Danny during the more successful season that we had, saying that he kind of changed the way he played. And this is somebody, well into his 30s, who's been around football a lot of his life, club captain, been there 10 years, and he's still learning at 33, 34 as he was then. So there's something really nice about that. From the outside looking in, I tell you what, on the positive side of it, there was very much a lot more endeavour, a lot more flair, a lot more movement, quite fluid. We opened up the what the kids call nowadays the number 10 position. I mean, I just for those in old money, number 10 nowadays means attacking midfielder through the. We used to call that number 8, if I remember rightly, back in the old days, and number 10 was Mieleski or Peter Crouch. It was the big lad, wasn't it? You know what I mean? The flick-on guy. But yeah, so he liked his attacking midfielder. So you'd play the three behind the lone striker, and that was quite successful because of the players we had. And then sometimes we'd have to play blood and guts football, and we also had that as well. We would switch between what you'd call 5 at the back with wing backs, or 3 at the back. You know what I mean? 3-4-2 or whatever the bloody hell. You know what I mean? Whatever it was. Yeah. But there was also a 4-2-3-1 formation that we played as well. So there was adaptability within there, which I find is really good. I mean, if you look at managers such as Ruben Amorim, who's staunchly sticking by this formation, albeit has got 2 wins on the bounce, it's taken him a good amount of time to try and get that to land. I mean, the amount of L's that you see on that, it looks like a Welsh train station on the form guide of Manchester United. But Danny did have a couple of ways of playing, but there was a really interesting trait that we had under Danny Rohl. I don't know if it's negative. I don't know if it's pragmatic and how you'd look at it. We never got 2 good halves of football out of him. Not once. Right. Not once. There would either be a really pragmatic 0-0 grind one out first half, and then we'd be great the second half, or we'd be crap both halves. You know what I mean? If we were getting beat, but we'd be great in the first half and then roll it back a little bit. There was never 2 good halves of football ever under Danny Rohl, and it became like a standing gag. So if we played well in the first half, we could go home. You know what I mean? We can get out of here or shoot off. Or, for example, the best example I can give you about Jenny Gassama and Danny Rohl was Boxing Day 2024 last year. We were 3-0 down away at Middlesbrough at the Riverside. 3-0 down at half time. Gassama was outstanding. And then the second half, we were a different team. I'd never seen anything like it. Slight little change, not in change of formation, slight little change in terms of personnel. And all of a sudden we drew. I mean, 3-0 down, you very rarely claw it back to 3-3. And we went home a lot happier than they did.
Yeah.
My apologies. I was talking for 20 minutes there.
It's all right. Absolutely. This is what we're here. We're here to get your insight, so that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think obviously pre-Danny Rohl at Sheffield Wednesday, and then after he arrived, how long did it take for him to sort of get things the way he wanted? So when obviously he arrived at Sheffield Wednesday, things weren't great. And then obviously when he got you into 12th position in the Championship, which was mind blowing for what for where he took over. How long did that process take? A long time, or was it quite or was it a gradual sort of thing?
That's a great question. So the reason being is, my Alexa's kicking off. Sorry, the reason that's a good question is that we went 10 games into the season, 10 league games into the season with ex-Watford manager Xisco Munoz, and we didn't win one. We didn't win a game. It was going to be a long old season. It was going to be a long old time. And we thought, wow, we are trash. We are rubbish. And having spoken to a couple of the players on our show after that period, a lot of it was an issue with communication. Sometimes when you get managers of a certain level, they're not very good communicators and they expect players to move. And, Wayne Rooney's found it during his coaching prowess, as it were. So, morale was on its backside. The results were on the backside, and the team were just not performing. So what happened is Danny came in, and we were excited. So this is the first time that Danny's taken the big boy job. He's always been the bridesmaid wherever he's been. He's been the number 2 wherever he's been. But when you look at those clubs, we're talking Premier League football under Ralph Hasenhüttl, who were punching well above their weight for a long time under him, and then the German national team. Bayern Munich, you know what I mean? He's not been the number 2 at Stockport County, has he? You know what I mean? So there's obviously some pedigree in there, and he comes from that collective, that Red Bull collective. So there's always people around him that he can draw on. Most notably that we had at Sheffield Wednesday was Chris Powell, the old Charlton manager and the guy from Ted Lasso for you kids who are listening out there. Who became an instant superstar with us. We absolutely loved him. I think he went to Walsall, and I think he was only there for 2 weeks, and he's just joined Jack Wilshere at Luton Town. So I don't know whether you're gonna get him there, but that was always fun to see around. However, he is a nerd, a tracksuit nerd. Where he talks like a robot. You know what I mean? And he refers to the team as my players this and my players that. And there were rumours at the time where sometimes he would fall out with some players. You know what I mean? He would have some, but not in one of those, I'm going to have a frank chat with you, fall out with the players. He'll say something and it's German, right? English is not his first language and he's German. So farting around the poo in terms of saying a sentence is not high on their agenda. They're a very direct bunch of people. So he's gone, you're not in my plans for this season. And there's no sugarcoating it. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? And sometimes some players need to hear that. And we got some players that dug deep and went, I'm going to show you. Or we got some players that just phoned it in and didn't play again for the back end of the season. So it was, in terms of man management, there was some bits there. But moving forward, to bring this answer in, we had about 4 or 5 games before we notched up our first win. I think our first win was against Rotherham United, who then went on to have one of the worst seasons in the Championship I've ever seen. Local derby, our striker Michael Smith's old club and our centre-back's old club in Michael Ehekwe. You know what I mean? It really galvanised it. And then that's the first time the players saw a rocking Hillsborough, saw a rocking, you know what I mean, a bunch of people cheering and chanting their name. And then there was like a point where they went, I like this. This is all right, this. And we managed to stay up. And we were dead and buried. The official line on paper is that we got stayed up on the last day, but I wasn't particularly worried up until the last day, if that makes sense. There were some teams in absolute free fall by then, but yeah, there was a definite mental and tactical dig deep, which I was really impressed by with Rohl.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our fan base are worried that mentally our players are either not up to it or events that have previously happened have hampered that. So is Danny Rohl going to be able to galvanise them mentally more than anything? Because obviously the players at Rangers are under so much pressure. Second is last in the league. If you lose one game, it's a crisis. 2 games, you're looking to get the manager sacked. So are the players going to, is he got the tools to give them the sort of winning mentality back and get them going in his direction?
That's He will, like, when you talk about those players that will get a tune out of some managers that will get tunes out of some players, like you always think of like your Ron Atkinson types, the ones that are going to put your arm around you and go, hey kid, come on, you're better than this. He will do it in a different way. He will galvanize them. He will make those players believe, and he will make the players trust his system. So he will galvanize that morale, because you're dead right, especially when it comes to Rangers. You're right, second place is last. You may as well have not turned up that season, right? And there is an expectation that Danny can deal with. He's worked for the German national team, right? He's worked for Bayern Munich. He knows what expectation looks like, because a lot of leagues across Europe are two-horse races, and if you're not winning with Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund have won that year, right? And that's kind of how it works. So he understands that side of it, but he will do it in a very methodical, very well coached, very well versed way. I wonder how the Rangers fans specifically, how long they will give him before they start going, this has not worked, because Russell Martin didn't get very long at all. However, I agree with you. The board had to pull the trigger before the morale got any worse, because losing breeds more losing, I'm afraid.
Yes. I think the difference, the difference I'm hoping is that Danny Rohl seems to communicate things fairly straightforward, as you said before, German way. Straight down the middle. You're not going to get any grey areas. It's going to be black or white with him. Whereas Russell Martin pivoted so many times. He said one thing, the next press conference he would say another thing. He would bounce back and forth. And I think the Rangers fans got pretty sick and tired of 1 minute he's saying one thing, and then the very next press conference he was saying another. So I think somebody like Danny Rohl, who is very straight talking, will basically say how it is. I think that'll resonate with a lot of Rangers fans, because that's almost like the Glasgow way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just say it how it is, and say it how it's been told. There's no messing around. And what was I said earlier? No farting around the poo. It is what it is. That's how it gets said. And Danny's really good at that. He's had some really frank conversations with some of our fringe players. We were lucky enough to have Lee Gregory on our show. A striker that Danny essentially froze out, and he was a crowd favourite, was Lee, and he was absolutely box office on our show. He was a really top guy, and he just said, look, face didn't fit. But what happened was he also was surrounded by Sasha Lenzer, his number two, who did a lot of the talking for him, because Danny's the tactics guy, right? This is his first time in the job where the number two is the the guy in the tracksuit, right? And I think he struggle to start with that. Yeah, obviously, if you finish strong, there is no way, shape, or form we should have finished mid-table last season, given the turmoil that was happening at the club. There was no way, shape, or form that some of those players were playing as well as they did. But I'll give you an example. We are Callum Patterson, right? Callum Patterson is not a technically gifted footballer. He's a big old bastard around in places, but I tell you what, he can do a job in certain games. I'm a huge advocate of his, don't get me wrong. But what Danny did was manage to use him correctly to make sure he was effective in certain areas. But he's one of those players that was told, you're not in my plans. You're out of here. And then he's gone F you and turned into one of our better players. Him taking a step down to League Two with Milton Keynes, though, is a head scratcher for me. But, I get it if you're not getting paid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our members, Mel, would like to ask the question. How does Danny Rohl get on in using young players? Is he an advocate of the young players? Because obviously, I think there was a lot of there was a lot of complaints that Russell Martin was buying young and not buying enough experience. So we have a very young squad. So is he gonna, how does he get the best out of a young bunch of players who are not relatively experienced in the arena that they're playing in?
Well, that's what he did with Gassama. So we had Jan Poveda, who was just on the books at Leeds United that we had on loan. He was only 19, 20. His career's fallen downhill since. Jenny Gassama was only 19 when we signed him. He likes to use a mixture of the both, but he's happy working with young players because of his background of being an assistant coach. You tend to work with the young players and develop those guys coming through, don't you? And I don't think that would be a massive issue for him in terms of developing the second string squad, as it were, developing the reserves, we didn't see much of that. We did see a lot of signings made, which, let's be honest, would have contributed to some of the issues that we're going through now. But that's not on the coach to manage the finances. That's on the chairman, right? So if we can't afford it, there should be a pushback saying no. And if you're asking and you're getting, why would you stop asking? But the players that Danny signed were all no older than 23, really, to an extent.
Yeah, and then one of our members again asking the question, I think this is a fairly sort of easy question to answer, but how will Sam react to Danny's appointment? I mean, I'm quite sure he'll be absolutely over the moon that his ex-boss that he played his best football under is now his manager or head coach.
Exactly that. Absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Because Danny turned Jedi into the player that we thought had signed for you, and the player that you thought you'd got during those European goals that he scored. I mean, he'll frustrate. He will frustrate you, but he'll try those things that make football players good from great to great,
Yeah. Now, going back to Danny Rohl's management style, we were the Russell Martin we experienced. There was a famous quote or a famous sort of observation that somebody said that there was a certain game where there was players a foot out of place, like literally a foot. They needed to step 1 foot to the right or 1 foot to the left or backward forward. So he was very, rigid in what he wanted. But the more I hear about Danny Rohl, he is quite flexible. He is, adaptable. He is obviously not as rigid as Russell Martin that was, because I think Russell Martin had plan A, and if plan A didn't work, there was no plan B. So what the Rangers fans are hoping is has Danny Rohl got multiple options if plan A doesn't work?
Probably have 2 or 3 formation. I think I said at the start, didn't I? He's got 2 or 3 to dig deep on if it's not working. Like I said, you don't really get two good halves of football out of roll ball, but there's definitely adaptability in there, because Russell Martin when he took Southampton up, played turgid dour, turgid get out the league football, and then got found out when they got up to the Premier League. There's no way they should have beaten that Leeds team in the playoffs. It was a joke that they went up. So unsurprisingly, they didn't spend any money and got the backside handed to him every week. How he then got the Rangers job was on the back of that promotion, thinking, there's something in there with him. But the real manager that Russell Martin was the one that got his backside handed to him week in, week out. So in terms of role, yes, there is a development and a switch that can be made if things aren't going right. I just caught a comment, if you don't mind. I know this is your show. My sincerest apologies, but
not a problem.
There's one here that says Rohl will be another Thirlwell puppet. Hence, it was so quick bringing him back when Muscat said no, like Gerrard. Can you draw at that one for me a little bit, because I feel like that's something I should answer, and I feel like I could example that a little bit.
Well, basically, the reason we're all surmising this, we haven't heard, because the press conference is at 3:30 this afternoon, so we'll maybe hear something there. But what fans are sort of surmising is that Gerrard and Muscat didn't take the job because they wanted more control over transfers, and Thirlwell wasn't willing to budge on that. He wanted to be the man in charge of transfers, and people are worried that Danny Rohl will basically not have a say in transfers. He will basically just get players thrown at him, and that's your players, go and coach them. So people are worried that is Danny Rohl a strong enough character to sort of stand up to the sporting director and say, well, this is how I'm wanting things.
That's a weird question. How do we think it works? It's surely not the manager like Bryan Clough still in charge of transfers back in the olden days. Surely the director of football gets the players in, doesn't he? However, let me just seriously break that down for a minute. So Danny Rohl is primarily a coach, right? That's what he is. Yeah. He has his set of players. This is what he manages to get out of him. But there was the summer before last, he signed, or the club signed 13 players. Like it was a huge amount of investment that he had, and it's not like he didn't have any say in that. So to in modern football to sit and say he's just going to get given players is a little bit I don't know. It's a bit dated, that, isn't it? Of course, the manager has a say in what players come into the club. Whether the director of football can get that over the line is obviously down to the finances and the selling club and the contracts and all the rest of it. But Danny definitely has input, or had input, at Sheffield Wednesday in terms of what players came in and what sort of player he wanted. You know, there was very much, you know, we had Gassama on one side, Masabra on the other, marauding attacking midfielders. We had a couple of big telegraph pole strikers up front, and players like Barry who could sit and spread the ball in the middle. You know, he had players that he needed to fill gaps, and he definitely had a style of player. The most interesting one was the pacey centre back. You know, at Championship football, you get two big 8-dimple Lego bricks. That's our centre backing works, right? But we had a player who Manchester United youth called Deshaun Bernard, who's unfortunately been injured, and his absence has been notable since he's been going through this injury process. And he's quick, and he's intelligent, and he's smart, and that'll be what you will start seeing coming in when you give them a couple of windows. But obviously, you're right. It's whether the finances can be made to work. In terms of getting on with the chairman, let's be honest. Once Danny got told he couldn't go to Southampton to, ironically replace Russell Martin, like I said at the top of the show, he really fell out with the chairman. He said, this is wrong. This is crap. I'm not standing for this. And then when the season ended, there was all these big photos at the away game at Watford, the last game of the season. He knew he wasn't coming back to work. He literally got on a plane from Luton 2 hours after the game and went home, and then came back for a week. And then we had all this back and forth of whether he's going to be our manager or not. He knew he weren't coming back. He'd moved out of his house before the last game of the season. So does he have a bit of bite in him and go, I'm not standing for this? Yeah, he does. Calling him a puppet, I feel like that's not him.
Well, that's very reassuring, because, as I say, a lot of fans have been worried that the fact that that Gerrard and Muscat didn't take the job, and people are feeling that it's as there's no polite sort of easier way to put it. They're worried that Danny Rohl was going to be a puppet, but the fact that you've said that he stood up to the chairman at Sheffield Wednesday and says, no, I'm not putting up with this. Yeah. That's at least a bit reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah, he is an elite top-end coach that's worked at one of the best national squads and one of the best international club squads in the world, right? You know what I mean? He's not going to be sat there and got told, can I sign this centre back that's our level? No, you can have this one from the Vanarama. You know what I mean? He's going to go, no. What's the point of being here? And if it's not working for him, he's in charge. He's the one that gets what he wants, and if he doesn't, he will on recent form, he did it as far back as May this year. He went, no, I'm not having it. I'm not going back work there. That's ridiculous.
Good. Well, as I say, that is very reassuring. And then I think it's important as well that Danny Rohl's had experience in Europe, because obviously we've got the Europa League campaign. It hasn't started well under Russell Martin, but at least with him having that experience with Bayern Munich and winning the Champions League, the German national team playing, stuff like that. At least he has experience of getting deep into tournaments, winning some of them. Because obviously the Germans haven't won anything for a wee while, but you can always bank on the Germans getting fairly close to winning things. They'll get to quarters and semi-finals fairly regularly. So I think from the European aspect, it'll be really nice to see how Danny Rohl gets on. Of course, he's away to SK Brann on Thursday in 2 days' time. So I think that's a nice an away trip to Norway. Not too, it's not a home game where the fans are all sort of on him, big pressure. An away game in Europe, it's not that bad a start, is it?
No, not at all. That's a great little intro for him. That it's not going to be mega. He will have spent a good few days with the players as well, and worked out what his system is. It wouldn't surprise me if Jeddy Gassama makes an appearance at some point. And have you got a player on the other wing who's a marauding attacking type?
Well, we did. Well, Ant-Man, who we signed in the summer, he his first ever game for us in Europe. Wow, we had him and Gassama, and it was great. I thought, this is brilliant. Two wingers marauding up and down. This is great. The very next game, or 2 weeks later, Ant-Man was like a shell. He just was completely a different player, and you thought, well, who's this? And then we've got Mikey Moore from Spurs. He was signed under a big fanfare because he was the next big thing in the England youth. He hasn't quite. I think it's fair to say that he's struggled. And I think a lot of them were struggling with the information overload from the manager, and I think they were scared or stifled to try things. Whereas wingers, as you know, wingers are going to try things. It's not always going to work, but the fact they're trying and they're trying to skin a fullback or trying to get a cross in, it's not always going to work out for the wingers. That goes back to the mental side, isn't it? If it's going to work, you've got to persevere so much as a winger, because it's not always going to work.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes you can coach really good players into being really average players by being too with the system. But what you could probably expect is a 4-2-3-1 with a couple of really attacking midfielders, and he will say to them, go out and go for it, lads. Just make sure that ball comes in. You'll see a lot of that hitting the byline and cutting back. So if you've got a striker that will just drag his run a little bit, sit on the edge of it, between the 6-yard and the penalty, tap it in. If that happens, I want you to clip this, and I want you to clip it with that goal that I've just said is going to happen. If anything happens, you know what I mean? I might just describe another goal just to get on a clip. So if that cross goes in and that big centre back heads it back post, you can clip that for the. You give it that one as well. Yeah.
I mean, we just signed the striker Majowski that was at Girona, who was previously at Aberdeen, and he scored a barrel load of goals for Aberdeen. He scored, I think, a couple of goals for us this season. Hasn't quite hit but he didn't play a lot of football recently. So I think again this is another issue that I've been wanting to ask. How is Danny Rohl in regards to fitness? Because I feel fitness is our biggest problem. We don't seem to be able to go a full 90 minutes. We get to 60 or 70, and then you can visibly see us struggling. How is Danny Rohl in regards to his team's fitness?
That's his best quality. I know that's absolutely. I tell you what, if you Google a picture of Jeddy Gassama from 2023 to when he first signed for you guys, he looks 2 stone lighter. He's managed to get an extra couple of years out of Barry Bannon, who's now 35 and still looks showing no signs of slowing down. There was Callum Patterson is a great example. Look at Patterson before playing under Chisco or Darren Moore. He liked his big chunky fellas, Darren Moore. And look at him at the start of last season. Again, 2 stone lighter. He looked absolutely incredible. And fitness it's where games are won and lost. You can't shit kick your way through football anymore. You need to be able to be quick. Because my little brother, I say little, he's well into his 30s now. He's one of the head coaches at Huddersfield. And so, you kind of want to apply information out of people like that doing things like this. So I'm like, so I've got to ask, how high up on the list is footballing ability? Because you and I grew up with players like Ali McCoist who would get on the pints and then smash 30 goals a season, right? When it comes to footballers now, I think he said it was 8th on the list was footballing ability. The rest of it is mentality and physicality, and that's why footballers are all thin young kids now, because they're quick, they're fast, they can think quicker rather than be David Hurst and Ali McCoist, who are a big couple of pints winning fat lads.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and when we played, when Gerrard was our manager and he left, we had a great season that season. We played 2 games back to back, a cup semi. We played Leipzig in the Europa League semi back to back, extra time, both of them. We could have played back, extra times, no problem. Whereas now the difference is visible, that we struggle going into the last few minutes of games. And Rangers fans just feel that we really struggle, physically, that we're not going to get, we see our neighbours along the city, they seem to dig out, 2-1s, 1-0s. They always score late on because they're probably fitter than us. And I think a lot of Rangers fans have always, we were fit not that long ago, and I think the drop off has been quite alarming. For that, looking from the outside in as fans, you like to think that football players keep themselves in good nick, but there's a difference between keeping yourself fit and then there's football fit, isn't there? Because it's a long time to go for 90 minutes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think, all the Sunday League superstars probably watching this or the test of that. The amount of times I've sat there and gone, let's have a sub ref. I've got an injury. I ain't got an injury. I'm just knackered. I need 5 minutes and a drink. You know what I mean? But to be professional level football fit, that's why Danny Rohl likes 20 to 23-year-olds, because they've still got that boundless exuberance of youth, as I think it gets referred to.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you a crystal ball before we finish. Where do you see Rangers season in April, May, after the season's finished? And how do you feel Danny Rohl is going to? Where do you see Danny Rohl's progression in this club?
That's interesting. That's interesting because if he goes in and hits the ground running, right? Let's see. Did you say his first game was Braga, the European game?
Yeah,
let's say it's the
yeah.
Right, let's see. He hits the ground running like that. All of a sudden, he'll be a legend. Tails will be up. It'll get rid of that losing mentality from the squad, and you can go on a 10-game run being Rangers, right? When do you play teams like Hearts? In about 3 games, you've got Celtic in the League Cup.
Well, just a way to say, we've got Kilmarnock at home this weekend coming. The Wednesday following, we've got Hibs away, Hibernian away. We've then got Celtic on the Sunday in the Cup semi, and then we've got Roma on the Thursday, not long after. So there's some serious games coming up.
That is tough. I mean, if he wins 3 of those, then great. You know what I mean? I think Killy is going to be his easiest run out of everything that you just named there. Roma's going to be a ball ache. Celtic's going to be a tight one. He never managed to beat Sheffield United as Sheffield Wednesday manager, but he understands what a derby is. I don't think he's ready for your one for good. I mean, we think ours is tasty, right? And oh God, that is a tough baptism of fire. But if he gets 2 wins and a draw or 3 wins out of that, leave him where he is. Leave him where he is. I don't know how patient your fans would be if he's only winning 2 games out of 5, though. To
be quite honest, see if he just wins the Celtic game. That'll be enough for a lot of fans.
That's it, isn't it?
You know what I mean? That'll be a lot. That'll stand him in good stead. I mean, obviously, we're wanting our league form picked up, right? I think I'm not saying Europe's out of the picture, but the league phase and our cup, that's where we need to improve, because we've struggled for a while in the league and the cup competitions, and that's where we feel the manager. I think, I'm not saying Europe's a busted flush this season because we've lost 2. You can still get into the top 24 with 2 losses, but it's an uphill task, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's probably why your fans are a little more agitated than usual, because Celtic aren't exactly tearing up the league either. Yeah. And there is a little window there where you sat there thinking, for God's sake, if we'd have had our shit together, we could have capitalized on them having a crap season. And because you're both having what to your levels are not a great season for the pair of you, you're annoyed. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh God, this is a golden opportunity to take some back. You know what I mean? Because since the troubles that you guys had about 15 years ago, and the way you've had to come back up through the leagues and all the rest of it, there's a lot of green on those tables you see with the leagues and the cups and stuff like that. And here's an opportunity that you guys are probably thinking, this is a missed opportunity, and that's why Russell Martin can gain the bin.
Yeah, absolutely. As one of our members, Multiple Man, saying, beat Celtic and he's 1 game away from a trophy. And the other semi, I believe, St Mirren and Motherwell. So, it's not like they're the Heartses, the Hibses, the Aberdeen. They're not one of the sort of recognised playing in Europe regular sort of other Scottish teams. They're sort of mid-table. They would always be mid-table teams. So he's effectively he's 1 game away if he beats Celtic to win a trophy, and that'll be a big thing for him, won't it? I mean, if he gets in and gets a trophy straight off the bat.
Think about tournament football and German managers, and Spanish as well. They seem to have picked it up as well. They will play the shittest, dourest, awful game of football anybody's seen and take it to penalties and win. And nobody's ever remembering that game. They'll remember it. They'll remember the captain lifting the trophy and the photos at the end of the game. Whereas because we grew up and wanted to beat teams and we want football to be a certain way, the Spanish and the Germans don't have that. They believe sticking it tight, playing crap football, and winning on penalties is a legitimate way to win a trophy. Tournament football is right up their street.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dan. Thanks for coming on and give us an insight into Mr. Rohl. I think the Rangers fans are starting to get more excited now. I think
I couldn't believe there was some pushback there. I thought, all right, I'm probably looking at it with Sheffield Wednesday tinted glasses. But I'm sat there thinking, that's a really good appointment. That's really good.
I think it's the fact. I think one of the club sort of media is going to ask the question, because he ruled himself out initially, and then he decided not to. So he was very much, I'm in talks now. I'm not in talks. So I think there's a little bit of, well, why did you pull out of the talks to come back into the talks? So I think there's a little bit of a worry there. So I think that's maybe where the anxiety is coming from.
Yeah, fair enough. I can see that, but I swear to God, it'll be a decent signing for you. I can feel it. I remember first reading about it when it first got mentioned and thinking, that's hand in hand. It seems to me to be a perfect marriage. I hope you don't clip that.
We'll clip the other bits. We won't clip that bit. But honestly, Dan, thank you very much for coming back on. As I say, I feel terrible that we're pinching your managers, your best players. But I mean, I've always liked Sheffield Wednesday in the fact that they're a very historical club in England. And they've been dealt a few harsh hands recently, and I really do hope you've managed to get out of the hole that you're in.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. And hopefully not speak very soon about new players coming to us, but best of luck for the rest of the season and best wishes. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks, man.
So there you go, folks. That was Dan from the Wednesday Week speaking about Danny Rohl being the new Rangers head coach. I believe the boss is going to be coming in anytime soon. If anybody was wondering, he is here. He is about. So how folks get, how he's feeling now after that? I mean, Dan was very, very, positive about Danny Rohl, wasn't he? He was, the fact that he's got 2 or 3 systems, I think, was very encouraging. I think the fact that his fitness is one of his big things, that's a massive thing. So there's a lot to digest out of that. And Martin will be here very shortly, and we'll discuss that with him. But I think it's exciting to know that fitness is his big thing, because I feel fitness has really been lacking at Rangers. I've always felt that for a good while, and the fact that he'll adapt in game, I think that's another big positive that Dan was speaking about. He'll change things, not personnel. He won't make subs. He'll actually move positions. So that for me is very interesting. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Good morning, Bryan. How are we?
Keep going. Afternoon.
Even there we go. Yes.
So how are you?
I've had a very busy morning, my friend. Very busy morning.
Well, I was worried you weren't appearing, and the members in the chat were getting worried because you weren't on, and I was like, "Don't worry, he's coming. He'll be here."
No, I've been out and about today, my friend. Had some stuff to take care of because it's either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. The morning Rabble's not on, you see.
Yes.
So it's one of the 2 days. And, today it was Tuesday.
No worries. But did you hear much of Dan and what he had to say?
I listened to a bit on the way in, yes, and he's very, very excited about Danny Rohl coming into Rangers. And do you know, when we booked Dan to come on, I had a funny feeling that that's the way it was going to go, because we did speak about this, Bryan, before when Danny Rohl was announced. Sorry, that the Sheffield Wednesday fans love him. They absolutely love him. The players have got a lot to say about him as well. I
was listening to TalkSport earlier, and David Edgar was on speaking to them, but I believe Jordan and White are going to have Josh Windass on towards the end of their show. So I don't know if that's finished their show yet or what. But Josh Windass was going to be speaking about Danny Rohl, and that would have been interesting to hear what he said, because obviously I think Josh Windass could argue that he played some good stuff under Danny Rohl. And what Dan was saying was that Danny Rohl gives players freedom. He allows them to, make a few mistakes, and he doesn't hold sort of grudges. Whereas I think the ex-manager, if you made a mistake, you were probably crucified, weren't you?
Yeah. I'm a bit feared to say this, Brian. I'm a little bit feared to say this, because I know it's not went well, right? I've got just a wee feeling about Danny Rohl. There's this wee feeling that says to me that this is going to be a good appointment, by the way.
Well, that's what Dan was saying. When he heard the news that Rangers were interested, he was like, "Oh, that could be a nice combo."
Yeah, I think it will be. I really, really think it will be. And listen, that doesn't mean that it will. Of course it doesn't. I've just got a wee feeling that the guy done a pretty good job, as Dan was saying, at Sheffield Wednesday. He done a very good job under the circumstances that they were in. Going into the club when they were effectively relegation fodder. They had no money. They couldn't really do anything. And he went in there and he turned that team around and he got them into effectively mid-table.
There's John. Yesterday I was raging. Today I'm delighted. See how quickly people's sort of opinions.
Listen. Let's wait until Thursday, right? And then we can maybe have a conversation about how we think it's going to look moving forward. But let's also not forget that the guy is literally just in the door. Yeah. And we can't expect too much too soon. But what we can expect to do, Brian, is win in the league from the off, from the start. Just because you say you can't expect too much too soon doesn't mean that you can then go and flip your opinion and go, right, well, I didn't accept a draw against Dundee with Russell Martin, but I'll accept a draw against Dundee with Danny Rohl. No. We expect the guy to come in and start winning straight away. I'm really scared that I think he's going to do well at Rangers.
Just to cool your jets, his next 5 games is Bryan away, Kilmarnock at home, Hibs away in the league, Celtic in the semi-final, Roma at home. That's his next 5 fixtures.
And the hardest game out of all of them you would look at and you would say Roma.
Yes.
It'd be the hardest game. Hibs away, tricky. But again, you would probably still expect us to be able to go there and win. There's no real game there, barring maybe Roma, that you would look at and go, there's no excuse for us not to win. No. And even the Celtic game. I mean, come on, they're not playing well. They're not in a good place right now. So, yeah, Brian, mate, I don't know. I can't.
You're scared to go all in here, aren't you?
I'm really scared. Because you don't know what's going to happen with any manager, really, do you? You don't know. But I don't know, man. I'm scared, Brian. I'm scared.
You're on the precipice, aren't you? You're close. You don't want to. But I mean, going by what Dan was saying, Danny Rohl's big thing's fitness. Now,
yes,
I was speaking to everybody just before you came on. I mean, fitness for me has been a huge issue at Rangers. Very big issue. Either players being injured, being rushed back, playing while they're still probably not 100% fit. Hopefully, Danny Rohl's appointment will at least get us to a point where we can actually can compete for 90 minutes and we're not breathing out our backsides after 70 minutes.
We've not really had that since, Gerrard?
Yeah.
The
season we got to the Europa League final.
Yeah, I would say so. We've not really had that since Gerrard. But what exactly can Danny Rohl come in and do in terms of fitness right now? I mean, how long is it going to take him to get a team fit? Because we're clearly not fit under Russell Martin. That's evident that we're not a fit team under Russell Martin. That second half against Dundee United proved that it wasn't all just down to fitness. There was a mentality thing in there with the players as well. But some of that's down to fitness as well, Brian. The team the team isn't up there where it should be, and you've got to ask, how long will it take Danny Rohl to come in and sort that problem?
Well, that's what I was, saying to Dan. How long did it take for you to see a difference in Danny Rohl? You got to remember when Danny Rohl came into Sheffield Wednesday, they were an absolute bin fire. I mean, we think we're a bin fire. They were unfortunately in an even worse bin fire state than us. And he said it took him like 4 or 5 games, and then you could see things happening. Now, I appreciate the scale. I don't think we're in such a bin fire state, and I don't think that I don't think the two situations are comparable, but he could see Dan and the Sheffield Wednesday fans could see something happening quickly after they'd lost 10 or 11 games in a row. They didn't win a point. They'd lost every game. So, form and, everything was right on its backside, as he said. And, after 4 or 5 games, they got a win, and then all of a sudden everything seemed to change and they got 12th in the end. So, I mean, how a guy can come in after, a team losing 10, 11 games, not getting a win, and then pushing them up to 12th. I mean, that is...
I mean, it's incredible where he got Sheffield Wednesday to in the league, if you look at the context around about it. And what I also like about Danny Rohl is that he's not just a guy who says, right, this is my formation, this is the way that I play football, so this is what we're going to do, regardless of the players that he's got. He'll come in, he'll assess the squad, and he'll play a style, he'll play a formation, he'll play tactics that suit the players that we have. And if you do that in Scotland, we should win 99% of the games with the players that we've got. And the closer we get to January, hopefully this board, when I say board, I mean owners, will back Danny Rohl in January and bring him in players. The question is will he have any say in those players? I don't know. Is it going to be the farewell and son show? I don't know. It's looking that way. But right now we have no option but to fully 100% get behind Danny Rohl. And everybody who goes to Ibrox has got to get behind him and got to support him and got to support the players in the park. And then we will wait and see what happens in the near future. But he's got to be supported, Bryan.
Oh, 100% he has to, 100%. I mean, one point that Dan did make about Danny Rohl was, he is not scared to stand up for himself. Like he fell out with the Sheffield Wednesday chairman because whatever was going on, and he wasn't amused. So I do feel Danny Rohl, although he's only 36 and he's a relatively sort of new into management. Sheffield Wednesday was his first body. You don't become the assistant manager at Bayern Munich and win Champions Leagues and Club World Cups and the assistant manager at the German National League if you're not able to speak your mind. So I think from what Dan said, Danny Rohl's his own man. He won't be scared to put his own points of view across, and so there's that aspect as well, because everybody does feel that Danny Rohl's going to be a puppet, but Dan from Sheffield Wednesday, the Wednesday week, didn't feel that was going to be the case.
Again, we don't know the whole situation behind the scenes. Listen, I think right now we just have to settle for Danny Rohl's in the door. Danny Rohl's the head coach. Danny Rohl's needs to go to try and get his winning again. We need to get winning games. He also needs, Bryan, and this is a big thing for him, he needs to try and get the best out of some of these players as well. He needs to reignite the fire under some of the players, get their confidence back up. I'm really excited to see what he can do with Gassama, because he had Gassama there for a couple of years and he had him playing some excellent stuff, so much so that we went in for him. It'll be good to see what he can try and get more out of Asgard now that we've seen a bit in that first half against Dundee United. We've seen what Asgard can bring to the team, so let's get him into Asgard. Let's see if we can try and do something with Chermiti. Let's see if we can bring a bit of confidence to him, because we all sat here and said under Russell Martin it's difficult to judge Chermiti because of the way that Russell Martin's playing, and then of course he gets severely judged in the game against Dundee United because he came on and he looked lost. He needs a manager as a young boy who's cost a lot of money, and it's not his fault that he cost a lot of money, and he needs support and he needs a manager. So that's another one of Danny Rohl's biggest issues right now, is coming in and galvanising these players and getting the confidence back in them. And he has to do that, Bryan, very, very quickly.
He has to. I think from what Dan was saying as well, that Danny Rohl likes his flying wingers. he likes his attacking midfielders. So hopefully, with, as you just said, Gassam being under him, Ant-Man when he first arrived looked very good. So you're kind of thinking that he'll be able to reignite that form and that sort of taking on fullbacks and attacking the byline. Whereas the wingers, and if you've got a good finisher in the box, then there's the wingers will get to the byline and cut the ball back. So there's that aspect. And then, as Dan was saying, he loves his attacking midfielders. He'll have two attacking midfielders that'll go and support the striker, and help him. So I think the tools are there for Danny Rohl. I don't think, as I've said many times, I don't think this squad is as bad as everybody's making out. I just feel they've been coached very poorly.
Yes, they have. Again, there's always going to be one or two players who don't cut the mustard. It happens at every club, right? There's always going to be. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. We've seen snippets for Rothwell in the last few times he's came on the park when he's been played slightly differently. We've seen, all right, okay, the guy can move forward, the guy can go forward. All right, let's see what this guy's got. I still think a big issue that we have is the defence. I think John Souttar's been struggling a wee bit. I think Cornelius has kind of been carrying the defence a little bit. I like Magoma. I think he's a good player, but I think he's got a lot to learn. He's still a young boy. He's going to make mistakes. I think he needs support in that position, and he doesn't have that right now. And I think taking Cornelius out of that back four, I think weakens the back four. And up front, Miovski, who, I mean, he's not had a lot of support, but has he had the best start to his Rangers career? Really, can we sit back and say that none of it's his fault? Because I thought he was quite poor against Dundee United. So, I mean, Miovski's a guy who's come into this country before. He won't even mention the team. Fair play to him. And scored a barrel load of goals, scored goals. John Souttar can go and do it away when he goes into international football. Cornelius has come in and settled pretty well. We've got a midfielder in Raskin who on his day, for me, is the best player in the league. We've got Asgard who can score goals for fun for Norway and can score that spectacular goal against Dundee United and shows us that he's got a little bit. You've got a young boy in Finlay Curtis who needs the proper amount of time and needs a sustained run in the team before he's being protected, who's shown potential. Gassama, who's probably been the best player at the club this season. You've got Ant-Man, who's showed us in little spouts what he can do. So absolutely, Brian, that there is cause for optimism at the football club. There absolutely is. There's some players there who, under the right management, I think we're just on the precipice of it being too late, I think. And if Danny Rohl can come in and get it right quickly, which is a tall job, it's a tough job for him to do, but if he can get it right quickly, don't write us off yet. But he has to come in and get it right straight away, Brian, and that's going to be a very difficult challenge for him.
It is. It really is. When you look at that fixtures that we've said, I mean, getting a win at home at Kilmarnock will be an achievement for us now, and it would have been an achievement under Russell Martin. But I'm starting to think that Danny Rohl's mentality, again, German mentality is very strong. It's very strong-willed, very decisive. As Dan says, there was a few home truths given to some players where they're like, "Your surplus requirements, you're not going to feature this season for me, so that's that." And I think that'll be. I think for a manager to be very honest with the players,
Brian,
is very good.
Is he going to have the power to do that at Rangers?
I hope so. And Dan said that he thinks that's going to happen. He's quite confident that he'll have the power and the sort of the license to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, right? If you're a manager and you've got a player and you think, I can't see a way for him, are you just going to pick him anyway? No, you're going to do something about it. So, and Dan was saying that Danny Rohl is very headstrong. He's very, once he's made his mind up on something, that is it. There's no sort of turning back. He will get the best out of players. That seems to be his good thing. And, working with young guys, he got Gassama from a raw young kid into playing how he did for Sheffield Wednesday. So helping the youth progress and get better seems to be another thing that Danny Rohl's good at. So there's a bit of optimism as well, because as I said to Dan, we've got a lot of young players. There's not much experience in that team. There's one, you've got Cornelius and Suter and Tav, but outside and Butland, but outside that, the experience isn't. There's not much, is there?
No, and that is something I think that's probably going to have to be sorted in January. And I think that actually goes to the question for Odd Bob, Brian, in terms of do you think he will get supported in the winter transfer window after what was Leo's 25, which was 25 mil plus spent under Russell Martin to support him? It has to be supported, Brian. They have to. Absolutely. They have to. But what they have to quickly work out is who can he get a tune out of and who can't he? And as Dan says, but that's what he will do, and he'll go to Thelwell and Stewart, and he'll say to them, X, Y, and Z. No use to me. And it's then up to our director of football, our sporting director, and his son to get out the paddling pool and go and do their job.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a sporting director, like say if you were the sporting director, Martin, I was the head coach, and I came to you and says, I've got 3 players here and I don't see a future for them. I don't see any use for them now. Get rid of them. What are you going to do? Are you just going to sit there and go, no, you've got to get something out of them? I've made up my mind on these players. I've studied them he's got from now till the 31st of December to work out who he wants to keep and who he doesn't. So if I came to you in the start of December or mid-December and says, right, I've gave these guys as much chances as I can, don't see a way out for them, I need you to get rid of them for me. Are you going to turn around as a head coach, a sporting director, and go, no, you're keeping them?
If I was Kevin Thelwell right now, I'd probably say, es tut mir leid, meine Deutsch ist nicht sehr gut. And that's probably what I would be saying to you, which translates, by the way, I'm reliably informed into, I am sorry, but my German is not very good. So that's probably, if I was Kevin Thelwell, that's probably what I would be saying to you, Brian.
Yeah, but the point still stands. If a head coach comes to you and says, right, I've assessed the squad, I've came to the conclusion that I've got 3 players here that aren't any use to me, I need you to get shot of them for me and get replacements.
Then it's up to you to get shot of them, and it's up to you to find replacements. Absolutely.
Yeah. So absolutely. I would like to think that again, we've heard this so many times, a clean slate for everyone. We've heard this before. But I think with this one, it's going to be, this will be the end of the road for a few of these players. I think there's a few of them that are in the squad that are going to think that they were on a cushy thing, and now suddenly they're not. So, that might come as a shock to some of them. But then he told a few players at Sheffield Wednesday, like Callum Patterson, that he was saying that, oh no, you're no use to me.
I think he puts it nicer than that, Brian.
Yes. I think he uses a bit of reverse psychology.
I think he just tells them in German.
Yes, there is that.
It's probably what he does. But I mean, the likes of John Suter out of contract at the end of the season, he's not getting offered a new deal, is he? There's no chance John Suter's getting offered a new deal. So there is players there. I mean, John Suter could technically sign a pre-contract in January, I think, for another
January
team.
the 1st, yes.
But I wouldn't imagine that Rangers are that interested in renewing John Suter's contract. Or
will they, because he's a Scottish international and he plays regular?
No, I don't think so. I really, really don't think
so. What happens if Danny Rohl gets the best out of him from now till and then he wants him signed up in a new deal?
If the manager the head coach, wants that done, then probably he would have to do it. But I just don't see that happening, Brian. I'll be honest, I don't see that happening. But what will be interesting though is to see if moving forward that Thelwell drops this everything in Scotland's terrible act. And we start to maybe bring in a few more Scottish born players or players in the Scottish leagues. That'll be the interesting thing for me. But to be honest with you, mate, all I'm going to say, this is all I'm saying, is that right now, from where I sit, from what I've heard, from the people who know Danny Rohl better than us, I am cautiously optimistic about Danny Rohl coming into the football club.
Is this you basically effectively saying you're sitting on the fence?
No, this is me saying that I really think he's going to do a really good job, and I think he's going to be a cracking head coach for us. but I just don't want to say that out loud in case he isn't. And then people come back and go, Martin, you know nothing. Because then that'll be them realising that I really know nothing. And I don't want people to find out that I don't know anything, Brian.
I think the thing is as well, Martin, you have to go on the Sheffield Wednesday fans and things like that because they experienced having him as their head coach, at their club. And I haven't seen one Sheffield Wednesday fan say anything bad about him. They all loved what he'd done. It was a total different story from when we hired Russell Martin, wasn't it? I mean, we had Southampton fans, we had Swansea fans, MK Dons fans. We had supporters from 3 different clubs coming out and saying, "Oh no, you've made a mistake." Whereas haven't heard one Sheffield Wednesday fan come out and say, "Oh, you've made a mistake here."
No, and again, I'll be honest. When we were linked with that, when it was coming out about Muscat and Rohl, I wanted Rohl over Muscat. Once I had read into him a little bit, once I'd seen what he'd done at Sheffield Wednesday, because I didn't really know much about him. So once I looked into him, I thought I would probably rather him than Muscat, to be brutally honest with you. I really would.
Yeah,
and we've got him. So
absolutely. I mean, it's as I keep going back to it. He was assistant at Bayern Munich and the German national team. I mean, this guy's dealt with some of the biggest egos in football.
Mm-hmm.
So, managing some of the Rangers players will be an absolute cakewalk to him, I would imagine. If he's had to deal with the likes of, I'm trying to think, Serge Gnabry and, some of the Joshua Kimmich and
Thomas Müller.
Thomas Müller, Manuel Neuer, the German goal. I mean, these are serious like German personalities, So he's had to deal with all them because although the Hansi Flick would have dealt with some of them, the assistant manager is the go-between between the head coach and the players.
I will say for Aldo Penny, though, like Germany were pish when he was there, though. They were.
Absolutely, but the German, yeah. But I mean, the German national team are still. I mean, it doesn't matter what nationality you are. If you're coming up against Germany, you're in for a tough ride because the Germans are, always there or thereabouts in like big tournaments. They might not win it, but they'll certainly get to usually quarters or semis at the very worst.
I mean, Brian, I do have to ask you before we finish, because you've been the one asking the questions. Are you excited about Danny Rohl? Has it reignited your excitement for Thursday?
Yes, it has. I'm maybe not wanting to put too much pressure on Thursday because I believe obviously he's just in the door. He's not going to get a great deal of time to get his ideas across and his tactics. Get some, but not all of it. So it's going to be a work in progress. I think this is going to be very much one that you're going to have to you're going to have to jump on the Rohl Express and sort of go with it because there's potential there. He's got lots of young guys that he can mold into his way of playing. He's got the energy. I think he's only 36, so he's got to have the passion and the energy for it. I like how the fact that he's fitness minded because it's been my biggest bugbearer for the team for several years. So that excites me that we might actually turn into a fairly fit team. So that's exciting me. It's exciting the fact that he, as Dan was saying, before, that he doesn't actually sub players off to make tweaks. He'll actually make in-game tweaks so that he'll change the structure of the team. He'll move players' positions, change the formation. So I think that's exciting. So yeah, there's lots to be excited about, but it's the big beast Rangers, isn't it? You've got a hard fan base to convince, and I honestly hope this works because if Danny Rohl can get the best out of these young guys and get a bit of confidence in them and get a bit of belief in them, this team could go far. Martin.
Oh, shocking behaviour. For the members who tuned into last night's WWE 2K25 Rabbleversary is what it was called because that's a year. Hopefully Rohl will do better than Martin in the wrestling. I think you'll find that it was Alan Brown that cost me in the wrestling last night. So yes. Just there's a question in there about the formation that he plays, Bryan. Now, from what I've read, from what I've researched and stuff, he plays a formation, but it changes fluidly throughout the game. Like, he doesn't just stick rigidly to one formation.
No, and I think the Great Wall of Canada has summed it up perfectly. That was what Dan was saying. He starts with a 4-2-3-1. He'll adapt it to a 3-5-2. Could go 4-3-3. I think that's great. You know, I think with that format, if you start with the 4-2-3-1, for example, right, you've got flexibility to move that around. It morphs into a 4-3-3. Then the 4-3-3 can morph into the 3-5-2. You know, he'll play with three centre backs and the flying wingers, the wing backs. The 4-2-3-1, you've got the two flying wingers. So I think it is good that there is adaptability in there. You know, I think Russell Martin was always claiming that he had adaptability and he could change things, but that was proved after Hokum. So, yeah, I think it's nice that Danny Rohl is, and it's the fact that he can change things during a game and not have to make a sub. So if things start, if he starts for 4-2-3-1 against, say, Bryan, and we're 0-0 half time, he'll change the formation for the second half without making a sub and wasting a sub. You know what I mean? If he feels that the 11 guys are correct, but they're just in the wrong place, he'll move them around like a chess piece of it, you know, like a chessboard. He'll move them around and try and get them into the best positions to strike and make an attack. So, yeah, I'm certainly more positive than a lot of other people are, because I've seen some things in socials that I'm shaking my head at, and I'm like, gee whiz, folks, calm down.
And just before we go then, Bryan, finally, press conference today.
Yes.
With Danny Rohl.
Yes.
You're looking forward to it? You're looking forward to some of the questions that... Listen, I've got every faith in fan media to ask the questions that need to be asked of Thelwell and Stewart. If indeed it's Thelwell and Stewart that show up, I mean, it has to be, right? Not so much confidence in the mainstream media, but you're looking forward to it?
I am. It's the first time we're going to hear from the bigwigs since, you know, they appointed Russell Martin. They were all full of praise when Russell Martin was appointed. That all went sideways. We all genuinely thought we were going to have a new manager in for the Dundee United game. That didn't happen. So this process, I think there'll be a lot of questions about the process in appointing, you know, Danny Rohl. And it's going to be a bit of a shame for Danny Rohl, because there's going to be a lot of questions asked about, you know, Steven Gerrard and Kevin Muscat. There's going to be those questions. So I kind of hope that the questions are asked in a way that doesn't make Danny Rohl feel, you know, awkward or you know, belittled in a way. But it's interesting that the chairman and the vice chairman are going as well. It's not just the sporting director and the CEO. I think it's the whole it's the whole big, yeah, it's the whole shebang here today. So if fan media want a question asked, this is the day to do it. If you want to find out anything on the reasonings why things happened or didn't happen, today's the day to ask.
You know, very few occasions, Bryan, right, that I look at a situation and go, oh, I'm glad Rangers knocked us back, right, for press access. Today is one of those days, Bryan, because you have to get these questions spot on of your fan media, right? I'm not trying to put any pressure on David, right, because David's done quite a lot of these. But if Cameron is sitting there, you've got to get that question right.
I mean, not being funny, right? As somebody just said in the comments there, you know, Great Wall of Canada, Thelwell's arse will be making buttons. I mean, let's be honest, right? Thelwell and Patrick Stewart will not be looking forward to this press conference one little bit, because they know the knives are out for them too, and they know they could say the most minuscule comment today, and that'll get jumped on. They know the way they answer each question is going to be scrutinized beyond belief. So this is going to be a extremely great watch. And you know, I'd love to do a live watch along for this. I really would. At 3:30, I would love to jump on and watch it and take it all in, and then discuss it afterwards, because I think this is going to be tremendous television today.
You've just put an idea in my head, Brian.
There you go.
A watch along for the members.
Yes, 3:30.
I'll think about it.
That means it's happening, folks.
I'll think.
If you want to become a member and join the watch along, please join in the description below. There you go.
Yeah, okay, do you know what? Yeah, okay, 3:30, we'll do it for the members. We'll do a watch along of the live press conference and we shall give you an immediate reaction to that as well. So, yes, if you are a channel member, yes, let's do that. Yes, 3:30.
As long as Rangers are live streaming it.
They should. They will be. Surely to God, they will be. They have to be. Let me check. I mean, this is usually the stuff that we do on members shows is we say, hold on, folks, don't go away. We're just going to check to see if anything has been... let me see. So, this is the kind of quality.
I'm trying.
This is the kind of quality content, by the way, that you get on the Rangers Rabble.
I mean, folks, after you've heard from Dan from the Wednesday week, you've heard everybody else. I just want a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're feeling better about things or you're not feeling good about things. Are you feeling positive about things? You know, how are you feeling now after, you know, we've heard, you know, a lot of input from, you know, about Danny Rohl. So are you feeling a thumbs up for if you're feeling positive about things or a thumbs down if you're not?
Oh, I like it, Brian. Give us a like if you're feeling positive and give us a like if you're not. There we go.
And hit the like button as well for the algorithm, absolutely.
Yes. Right. Well, Rangers' last 3 live streams have been Russell Martin's press conference, Philip Clement's press conference, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's press conference. So, yeah, I would imagine it will be live. So, yes, we will do it. We'll be back at 3:30.
There we go. There we go, folks. I've got you an extra show in. So, join us at 3:30. We'll be here listening to Danny Rohl's press conference, and you will also hear from Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marath, Patrick Stewart, and Kevin Thelwell. So the whole gang are in town. I'm quite sure they'll be wanting to take a little bit of credit for this, Martin, won't they? They'll be wanting to make themselves look very good.
Yes, and if you want to join, like I said, like Brian says, if you want to join us for that live watch along, then you can become a member right now. It takes 2 seconds. In the description, you click that YouTube button and you sign up there. If you like to listen back, if you prefer to be out doing a walk with your earphones in and listen to it as an audio download, then join up on the Patreon instead. It is completely up to you. But we'll be back at 3:30 for members for a live watch along, and then it'll be uploaded onto Patreon not long after that. In fact, no, it's a watch along, so it'll be live on Patreon as well. So there we go.
Yes. Andrew Cameron, you better believe I'd like to be there. I'd like to ask some good questions, I'll tell you. The press conference, I think Martin would love to be there also.
I would, yeah. No, obviously not, because if I wanted to be there, I would be there. Do you know who I am?
You're not Connor Chalmers, are you?
No, I'm not Connor. I'm not Connor. I said that to my missus one night as a joke. She went, nobody. I went, aye, pretty much. Aye, that's about as far as it goes. This was supposed to be my half day today. But yeah, there we go. Okay.
Absolutely. But no, join us at 3:30, folks, for the live stream of the Danny Rohl press conference with all the hierarchy at Rangers. I hope you enjoyed Dan from the Wednesday week on as well. A good chat with him, good insight into how he sees Danny Rohl and more specifically Gassama and how he's going to react to, you know, how he might flourish under him, and the fact that Danny Rohl got the best out of young players as well, the fitness. So yeah, join us at 3:30, folks. Martin, you got anything else to say?
No.
There we go.
I usually would have some witty retort or whatever, but I'm not going to lie to you. Time for a coffee, Brian.
There we go. So folks, go and get your lunch, get your coffees charged. 3:30, join us for the watch along for Danny Rohl's press conference. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. It's been much appreciated. Lots of comments, lots of questions. It was great to get them in for Dan in the Wednesday week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll speak at 3:30.